Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for part 2 here with Mr. Steve Vest. We left off, I was asking about Southern rock, and with that being said, I already introduced him formally. Go ahead and continue on. And
how y'all doing again? Well, we were talking about the beginnings of Southern rock. It did start with Greg and Dwayne, Dickie Betts. Dickie had a band called The Second Coming. When I started playing with Greg and Dwayne Allman, they had put a band together with Scott Boyer, David Brown, called the Allman Joys. Now we had all worked together in a band called the Bitter End. That was Butch Trucks' band, so we all knew each other. I knew Butch Trucks. Butch and I had a band called the Messenger of the Masses when he was with the Vikings. But he, like a lot of drummers do, and bass players and harmonica players and saxophone players, they sometimes wanted to pick up an extra project to work with, somebody else besides the band that they were working with on a regular basis. And so the Allmans and I started off together with the Allman Joys. Greg and Dwayne would come and pick me up in Dwayne's van in Jacksonville. I'd meet them downtown. They'd take me down to Daytona to play with them at the Rec Bar and the Blind Pig. And eventually I got to play at the Martinique, which is now the Full Moon on Main Street.
The Blind Pig, that's actually, was it a blues club? Because I think that's a record label that produces blues albums. Blind Pig? The Blind Pig,
yeah, it was a bar. It was just a regular bar at the time.
But was it a blues-based bar or like blues music?
Oh yeah, well see, the Allmans and I, we really got into the blues a lot. There was a lot of blues. You know, and I wrote with them. I mean, you know, one thing about the music business, you got to be willing to toot your own horn. If you don't toot your own horn, everybody's looking out for themselves. Sad to say, but that's just the way it is.
Now, with that being said, have you ever been up on stage where, you know, obviously as a musician you want to please the crowd? Have you ever gotten, because this is a true story and this is, you know, about you, but back in the late 80s I seen, and they were brand new at the time, the Black Crowes opened up for Robert Plant. And people were and Black Crowes went on to become a great band,
right,
but they were opening act. Everyone wanted to see Plant. So they were booing the Black Crowes, which is amazing.
Oh,
so I guess, Mike, have you ever gone on stage where the crowd didn't respond friendly?
No.
Since we're in the South, and you know, Southern folks kind of have that, you know, gritty.
I can tell you something real funny. Getting back to the Sknyrd band, we played at a place called the Cowboy Bar, and it was straight out Normandy Boulevard on the west side. And we went out there to this Cowboy Bar. It was on the left-hand side, going straight out Normandy Boulevard toward, I think it was called Marietta, a town called Marietta. And we went there, and I have played some of these roadhouses. And this was a roadhouse. It had a fish net in front of it. If you saw Patrick Swayze and Sam Elliott in Roadhouse, I've been in that situation.
Jeff Healey in that movie, incredible guitar player.
Right. And but that night I played with Sknyrd. I opened up for Sknyrd, and these cowboys were real cowboys, like the ones you know, around where we live out here. And you know, Florida has its share of real cowboys, and they all had cowboy hats on when they came in, and you know, we got to play it and everything. Well, they started taking out their guns and literally shooting up into the rafters, because this bar was an old barn, and I'm sure Gary would remember this. He'd get a kick out of me sharing this story, but you know, they pulled their guns out. And they started firing up into the rafters of this old barn, which had been converted into a bar. Well, we all started packing up as fast as we could. Ronnie says, "Pack the gear, man. We're getting out of here." And you know, and we were packing up, and Alan took 3 giant leaps out the back door. It reminded me of Give Me 3 Steps, because I was there that night at the Pastime Bar, which was originally called the West Tavern.
Was Linda Lou in the bar that night?
Her name, Linda Lou, was Alan's grandmother, but the girl's name actually was Linda.
She's a real person, or Linda Lou?
Yeah, she was a real person, but that was Alan Collins' grandmother. They had to change some things to make the song sound really good. But the woman's name was Linda, and she was with a biker, and that wasn't good for Ronnie at all. The doorman had hair down to his shoulders, and he was an older fella. He had gray hair, and he wore the little wire rim glasses, because when the fella came in that night, and I was there, that was 1967. It was not at the Little Brown Jug. Ronnie changed that, and I was with Ronnie when he changed it, because the first part of Give Me 3 Steps was written in my presence, and the last part was written with Gary in his presence, and that's another story. But they started firing their guns up. Well, we were packing up. Well, the manager comes up. He says, "Where you boys going?" And I said, "Man, are you mad, man? They're going to be throwing beer bottles at us next." You know, well, we were behind a fish net, a real one. This is a real roadhouse. And if you know, if we don't, you know, if we don't pack up, man, I mean, you know, we're going to get jumped, you know. And he said, "No, man, they love you. That's why they're shooting their guns off." I said, "They love us? Yeah, get back on that stage, Ronnie."
Let me
funny, yeah.
Okay, the Hell House, since you're mentioning guns and everything, now the, you know, the Van Zandt boys and the rest of the band weren't so innocent as well, because rumor has it that, you know, it was a hot little shack in the middle of the woods, but, you know, after a while, people, you know, could hear them playing there, so they showed up one day, and, you know, a couple good, you know, amps and a couple mics got stolen, so a couple of them went out and bought guns and said, and then, according to the story, they would rotate, like Alan would stay there one night, then Gary, and would protect, because they kept, when they left their practice all day, they left the drum set, all their stuff there, so.
Well, it was a tin shack. In the beginning, it didn't have any windows. They had a carpenter come in and
no
put
air
some
conditioner
windows.
in Florida?
No air conditioning. That's why it was called the Hell House. We literally had to take our shirts off.
I bet.
Because we had one of those big gray warehouse fans. That was it. Ronnie was a sweater.
You got an airplane going.
Okay.
Look, there's an airplane up in the sky, as Pink Floyd would say. Although do you think they'll drop the bomb? All right, sounds like it's gone. All right.
But we literally took our shirts off during practice because it was so hot in there. It had nothing to do with, you know, with the dark side or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, the Sknyrd band was, they were a tough band. I mean,
well, we had a tough image.
Well,
more.
You know, for example, they opened up for the Rolling Stones, and it's in that documentary.
Yeah.
And like the Stones, their stage was set up with the big tongue, and it was like a rule that if you were opening the band, you don't go out to the tongue. Well, doing Freebird, he pushed Alan and Gary and Ed all the way up to the tip of the tongue, and the Stones were pissed.
Well, Al Cooper when he was up there in Atlanta. When they were up there at the Finocchio bar, I wasn't with them anymore. That's when I got kind of left behind there. But they would call me. Well, they had a big opportunity. Al Cooper was the biggest name as a promoter in the entire music business at one time, and he said, "I'm looking for a band that can, you know, can kick the Rolling Stones, you know, kick their butts." And, you know, he said, "I found them," you know, and that's all true. And You know, so you know, I talk to people. I've talked to people from year to year. You know, that are famous people. I talk to celebrities quite often. So
now it's on that website that you gave me. But why did Ronnie and Ted Nugent? I mean, what was the? I mean, obviously the story's there. You can read it, but you know, from your own words, since we're doing a video,
yeah. Well, now,
what happened that night?
Here's
What caused the feud?
All right, here's a misconception. See, if once you get locked into a contract with a record company, you only have so many days to turn out another song and then another song and all that.
Right.
But actually, Ted Nugent wrote Cat Scratch Fever in 1969, and he went south to experiment to see how that song was going to go over live. Well, it was in that day it was considered racy. It was just too sleazy.
Educate me.
You know.
What does Cat Scratch Fever refer to? I
don't want to go into all the detail of it,
right,
but
I'll Google it.
It's a real sexy, sensual song.
I got you.
All right, now, Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes, their band, they had a big hit on the radio, Journey to the Center of Your Mind. But I talked to Ted. I got to know Ted through this experience. We played with Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes in 1969. Leonard Sknyrd was not Leonard Sknyrd yet. They were still 1%. For Sidney Drashin, Jet Set Enterprises, in Jacksonville at Skateland. This was a converted roller dome that was turned into a rock concert hall on Friday and Saturday nights, and on Kings Avenue in San Marco in Jacksonville. And Ted Nugent he was cocky, man. I mean, he was real cocky. And Ronnie just kind of, you know, shot him down a little bit, because Ronnie can look you square in the eyes. He can look down and see your soul. I mean, very few people can do that. I met Johnny Cash in 1972 at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, and you know, Johnny Cash could look down and see your soul like that. But that's rare. Most people don't have that ability. Ronnie had that ability. He was a deliberate person. If he said he was going to do something, he did it.
Was he just territorial, or?
Oh, well, all Southern rockers are territorial.
Or
I'm the least of the territorial
Did he look
Southern
at it
rockers.
as a competition, or was he just a bad-tempered, you know, like some people just have bad tempers?
No. Ronnie was not intimidated by older people.
All right, so he didn't care if you were B.B. King at that time.
He didn't care who you were. He'd look you square in the eyes. I'm the same way. But Ronnie had a way of making people feel a little uncomfortable, you know, because he didn't smile a whole lot. But you know, I don't really do a lot of smiles myself. But
well, I remember, again, you know, based on the Leonard Sknyrd documentary, when Ed King, he said when he came to California, he came to, I guess, the Jacksonville area, maybe it was up in Georgia.
No, I can tell you what happened.
And he said the first time he seen Leonard Sknyrd, he was impressed by Ronnie, although he said he annoyed the hell out of me, but he was just, Well,
he called himself the long-haired redneck. That says it all. Now, what happened was, the Strawberry Alarm Clock did a national tour.
All right.
Sidney Drashin would would make a deal with another promoter.
All right.
He made a deal, got Sknyrd to be the opening act for the Strawberry Alarm Clock in Georgia, in Florida, and I was on that tour. It's called the Southeast Tour. I was the opening act, and I played with several songs with Sknyrd, and did my own songs as the opening act, and we all toured Georgia and Florida. Ed King was the lead guitarist for the band that was doing the national tour. Well, when Ed King heard how good Sknyrd was, you know.
Let me make an adjustment on my camera here, because with the microphone's so sensitive, I can hear what you're talking about sometimes. I don't have the pod for this. If I can stand up on a pod, every time I just remotely move the camera, I can hear what you're talking about. There's that little like crackle crackle. So I'm going to see if I can maybe.
Right, this is just down home, folks.
Place it. Let me see if I place it without having to hold it. I'm sorry to interrupt right in the middle, but if I can just let it sit.
No! I'd almost hit my walking stick.
Oh, sorry about that, my friend.
Well, that's all right.
If I can get this to hold, we need to. All right, perfect. Talk as much as you want. Camera's
Okay, all right. Now, so the Strawberry Alarm Clock, we're on this national tour. Well, you don't just step into, normally, most bands don't get fortunate enough or lucky enough to just step right into worldwide fame. It just doesn't happen that way. You got to pay your dues, and you got to work your way up the ladder. And that's, you know, the Sknyrd boys were working their way from Jacksonville. Then they were getting known. We were getting known, and I say we because I went on tour with them. I can say we with the Allman brothers, even though I was a side man now. Folks, I'm not claiming to have ever been a member of either one of those bands. I'm not claiming to be a member of Tom Petty's band Mudcrutch. I was a member of the King James Version and Magi, and we did have Leon Wilkeson as our bass player. And he was one of the founding fathers of King James. I was the last one to join. But Ronnie had talked to Drew Lumbar, the band leader, and said, "You really need a front man, Drew. You're a great, you know, you're a great guitarist, you know, and your voice is good, man. But you need somebody that really knows what they're doing as a front man." So Ronnie set me up with an audition with Drew Lumbar, Leon Wilkeson, and Tom. I don't remember Tom's last name, but I know the last band he played with was Karen Abrams' band. Started in Jacksonville Beach, worked their way all the way to Austin City Limits, and he was her drummer. His name's Tom. But anyway, with the King James Version, I became front man. I had a few songs to sing, and I got the audition like that.
You can sing us one if you like, my friend.
What's that?
You can sing us one.
No, not right now. But I've been doing a lot of talking, signing autographs, and doing a lot of talking just a few days ago.
We'll get you next time.
I got to rest my voice on that.
Well, you can.
But anyway, but you know, they were doing. I had to sing a couple Zeppelin tunes, and you know, but I have my own original music, and I use that music as the opening act, you know, for Sknyrd, getting back to Sknyrd now, on the Southeast tour. And that's where we met Ed King. Well, they stayed in the hotels. Well, we slept in Dean Kilpatrick's van. Our last night was in a motel room in St. Augustine. But that's another story too, but that's hilarious. We all had to sleep on cots, but because Allman was so tall, he got the bed. But anyway, nothing fancy. But Allman did kind of kick Gary in the head a couple times during the night because he was, you know, coming forth with some melody in his brain, and he was moving that foot, and he kicked Gary a couple times in the head.
But wait a second. So they gave Allman the bed, although he was the youngest member of the band?
Well, yeah, well, I was like 6'2".
Get on the floor.
You know, no, that was, it was all right. We all had cots.
He got the setup then, just because he's tall, he got the bed, so he was like...
Well, you should have seen us packed like sardines in Dean Kilpatrick's van.
Oh, goodness.
All I had was a little Volkswagen Bug, you know.
It's funny, there's a saying, only musicians would do this. Pack up $500, you know, worth of gear, travel 100 miles to get paid $100 to play a gig, but spend $80 on gas getting there and back and forth.
Well, yeah,
that's called paying your dues.
Yeah, I mean, when I was playing between the two bands for years, from 1965 on, and you know, I'd get a call from Barry Oakley, you know, from the Allman Brothers, after they had moved from Jacksonville to Macon, wanting me to meet them up in Georgia. Well, I played the Atlanta Pop Festival with them. Tom Doucette and I both played harmonicas for the Allman Brothers Band on July 4th, 1970. So I want to make that clear. They didn't just have one harmonica player. I'm that other harmonica player with the Allman Brothers Band. And I could keep it going because I was making money. I was making money on, you know, with both the bands
on
at the same time. Yeah.
When the Allman Brothers went into the studio to, you know, to do the records, as a studio musician, did you lay down harp or anything on any of their tracks?
I worked with the Allman Brothers on some early reel-to-reels. Now, I told this on my own show, the Swamp Chat, that Dwayne had his own reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he would do that. We had they had a studio when I was living with Greg in the summer of '68. Okay, getting ready to wrap it up.
No, I'm going to get a drink. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. In '68, I was working one-on-one with Greg and Dwayne, and I worked on Not My Cross to Bear. That was the first song, actually, that Greg came up with. That was 1965. In 1967, he in Pensacola, he came up with Sweet Melissa. I'm the one that wrote the straight lead behind Sweet Melissa. It goes all the way through the song. That was my idea. Greg loved the fact that to play the straight lead all the way through. It was not Dickie. It was not Dickie Betts, and I'll tell the whole world that. And you know, but it was not Dickie. But Dickie did record it with Greg in the fall of '68. But it was not Dickie Betts. That was me, Steve Vest. I'm the one that wrote it. I was living with Greg at the time in Daytona Beach, and he was flying out on Monday mornings to go to Los Angeles. He was under contract with Liberty Records to go to Los Angeles and work with the Hourglass, Paul Hornsby's band. So he was running two bands at the same time. He had revived the Allman Joys in Daytona Beach, which I was a part of. Now, I was a side man. I never said I was a member. My bands were King James Version, Magi, and a band called L.O.D.A. with Jim Brown, who still lives in Jacksonville. He had his own sound company called JB Sound Company. And we put a band together with a fellow named Ted from the Ravens. He was a friend of Phil Kay. Phil Kay was known for a famous band called the Chantels. Phil and the Chantels. They used to play at the Comic Book Club downtown Jacksonville. Folks, I'm shooting it straight. I'm telling you nothing but truth. I don't exaggerate the facts or anything like that. I talked to Gary a couple of years ago, Gary Washington on the phone. He was real glad to hear from me. So Gary and I are cool. John Rowell and I are cool. He's a security manager for Leonard Sknyrd. I know Ricky Medlock. I haven't seen him in a long time. Fame has a way of separating old friends. But I know Ricky Medlock. Ricky Medlock and I were the only two side men with Leonard Sknyrd back in those days.
Right.
Ricky was a fill-in drummer for Bob Burns.
Right.
Yeah.
When we talked over the phone and those videos I showed you where we was talking on the phone, I wanted, now that we have you on video, because I was interested in this story, something about a Southern Jam, and I think the way you stated is Ronnie said, go find another band that's worthy of us, that's worthy to play with us.
Right, well,
and
Sidney had talked to Ronnie, Sidney Drashin. Sidney's still alive. Sidney's wife wrote a book about him called Sidney Drashin, the ringleader of rock shows. It's a great book. It's a great reference book. It mentions the Second Coming. It mentions Sknyrd. It mentions the Allman Brothers. Yeah, I really enjoy reading it. I was reading it just 2 days ago because it helps me to reflect and make sure I got my memory straight, because I don't want to lead anybody astray. Yeah.
Okay. It's good that I did take notes, because I had no idea who Drew Lumbar, like when you say his name.
Drew Lumbar was
but
an
he
excellent
went on to play with Government
guitarist.
Mule, right?
He started a band called Government Mule.
Okay, then went to King. Okay.
And Warren Haynes from the Allman Brothers has restarted Government Mule.
Really?
I'm glad to see that.
This in 2022.
But the original Government Mule was in the late '60s. It wasn't in. It wasn't the same members of the Government Mule with Warren Haynes. He's younger than me, so. You know, I've had the privilege of working with Michael Allman, Greg's oldest son. The Michael Allman, now not the Michael Allman band, but Michael Allman. And I was able to get Artemis Powell and Michael Allman together in White, Georgia, to play for a Bob Burns tribute concert.
We're gonna go 5 more minutes.
With his daughter Lou Burns. So Lou and I put that concert together with a promoter of hers also.
Man, I once again want to thank
His
you.
His name was John Warren.
Once again, I do want to thank you for doing the interview. I have some questions that, well, it's about music, but as far as your acquaintances and who you play with, because, you know, as someone that's trying to learn the guitar, and I certainly can't play as well as you, tell us about your style.
Man. You're pretty good player.
I seen your, you know, you got that, well, my friend Carl's going to laugh if he watches this, because he says, yeah, all those good guitar players, they had them long alien fingers.
Oh, yeah, I got them.
Like, look at my hands, like.
See my fingers, folks?
Yeah. Like,
I can do that.
So that movable shape.
Flamenco music. I have my own style, and that's what Ronnie loved about me. When you
first picked up a guitar, like you seen when I pulled out my bass, like I never even considered using a pick ever when I learned the bass. I do all finger picking on the bass.
Well, that's a good way to learn.
And it's because it's
the less you use the flat pick, the better in the beginning.
Well, on bass, I don't use it at all. Now on guitar, I've been playing 10 years now. For the first 7 years, I strictly use the pick. It's only been after my arm healed, so within the last 2 years, I started noticing that I almost prefer not using a pick. Plus, I got those, who's the name? God, he's an acoustic guitar player, and he uses that thumb pick, Tommy Emmanuel. Okay, he uses these picks, like, and I got a set in there made by Dunlop. They go over all your fingers, so you can actually have a pick.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, the old, the old finger pick. Never used them.
I didn't like
them.
No,
banjo players need them, but
they're made out of metal. They hurt your hands.
I never used them.
I just, you know, as long as you have strong nails and.
Right. My fingernails grow real fast.
Yeah, mine.
And you know, I have to keep them, you know, shorter. You know, I don't want them too long. But when I'm actually playing, you know, I'll let the fingernails on my right hand grow out just a little more, so I can work with them.
I guess my next question would be regarding a capo. A lot of people use the capo because, like, especially if you got a blues song.
I saw Eric Clapton using a capo in concert last night.
Because, well, some singers.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Like Pink Floyd, for example. I can rattle off at least 5 songs right off the top of my head. They're all in the key of G. Mother, Wish You Were Here.
Yeah. They are.
They're like.
Right.
So I know. Now it seems Sknyrd, they use a lot of the A and D chords, like, you know, give me 3 steps. But how did you? Now, when you started playing guitar, you started playing the harmonica at the same time, and how did
I started? Tommy
Cumby. People can do both. Like that's
Tommy
like Bob
Cumby
Dylan.
was a friend of mine. He was a son of. There's a very famous rockabilly country star named Hank Snow, and he was Hank Snow's lead guitarist's son, Roy Cumby.
Wait, time out. Sunfire, you get your little butt in here, and don't go out there again.
And he gave, Tommy gave me his own dad's harmonica stand. Well, I was in the 6th grade. So in the 6th grade, I started playing harmonica and guitar together. like Bob Dylan and Neil Young. I was the only one doing it in the entire South. So Ronnie nicknamed me the Southern Neil Young. Steve Vest, the Southern Neil Young.
Oh man, don't need him around.
Yeah, well, you know. But we all liked Neil. It was just, you know, I don't get political, so that's how I survive.
Yeah, that's probably best.
I stay out of that circle.
Okay, we're at 30 minutes here, then the other one was 10, so we got a 40-minute interview. I'm going to end, unless you have a closing statement, I'm going to end part 2, and then we can.
Well, I appreciate you, CJ. You got.
Thank you.
You have good stage presence yourself.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate that.
You know, I can tell that you're shooting it straight. You know, you're being honest with me.
My philosophy is,
I appreciate
if you don't
that.
lie, you'll never get caught. If you always tell the truth, you'll never get caught in a lie.
Well, I've had trolls trying to come after me on my show, and you know, they're either guys that I knew in Jacksonville. They're just a little on the jealous side there because they didn't have my opportunities, and I know that. So I don't get down on that level and get into all that. But I did want to make it straight about Ted Nugent. He did write Cat Scratch Fever in '69 because he played it live when we played at Skateland, and that was almost 1970. But he was not allowed to put it on an album till 1977. That's the deal there with Ted Nugent and Cat Scratch Fever.
With that being said, folks, I also want to mention it, and Steve Vest was kind enough to mention it. You guys, I know everybody that's watching this has YouTube. Please check out Steve's YouTube channel. Just Steve Vest.
Swamp Chat.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve Vest, and the name of his channel is Swamp Chat. So,
well, the name of the show is Swamp Chat.
And it's all great stuff, and he plays a lot of guitar. He tells some stories, but he's got his electric guitars out here in the country area, and they're cool vids. I watched them, and I was impressed. And so that's why eventually I'm going to get this man to jam 1 or 2 songs with me. Eventually, we're going to take little baby steps.
I didn't have all your fancy equipment. I'm out there with a BC Rich electric guitar with no amp, even trying to. No, I think I did play through the amp that day. I did play through the amp that day. When I played with the BC Rich on the Swamp Chat, I did play through the amp. I remember now. But usually I was playing on my acoustical electric, and it was just raw. It was just acoustic.
Right.
You know, but I worked with Sknyrd on not Sweet Home Alabama. That was Ed King. But I did do the field notes for Freebird, Simple Man, and Tuesday's Gone. And
yeah, I would like to see that again, because I didn't get a recording of that.
Well, right after they wrote the songs, they called me up to come in and do a fill.
Right.
So as a third guitarist, and that's what I did.
What did it go from the G to the, what did you say,
well, now it is true that the intro was written by me. It was not written by Billy Powell. Billy Powell did play my notes on Freebird. That was all my idea, you know, because I'm a finger picker, and I use from my thumb to my little finger, folks. I can play that flamenco music. I can palm it like Segovia, so I had that ability.
I noticed when you were playing out here the other day, like, you take that right hand, it's not necessarily always by the sound hole. You'll move it.
No, I take it way up on the neck and bounce it back and forth like this, and literally pluck the strings.
Yes.
And that's hard to do. And I'm glad that Ronnie and Gary and Alan and Bob and LJ, Larry Jungstrom, gave me a chance because they recognized my talent. And same with Greg and Dwayne Allman. So they got me in on their first song, and it was not my cross to bear. And then I worked, I did the straight lead on Sweet Melissa, and I worked on Hoochie Coochie Man and Black Hearted Woman, Don't Want You No More. So, you know, well, we're going to wrap it up this time, folks, but we'll have another interview soon.
And I do want to mention that, now, I don't know, because Steve and I have been talking, you know, discussions on topics, but just to let you guys know, he's met Led Zeppelin, I mean, just too many people.
Jeff Rotel.
Yeah, I mean, so If you like this
Deep
video,
Purple.
then just tune in for the continuation. All I can say is I appreciate it, and
you know, I hit it off real well with Led Zeppelin. That was in Jacksonville.
that must have
At the
been
downtown Coliseum, yeah. I talked to Jimmy Page, he's a talker. And so, yeah,
there's I don't know if you have
talked a
Netflix,
lot.
but that's all I watch because it's commercial free. I mainly watch the music documentaries, but the Sknyrd one's good. There's one on Keith Richards, ZZ Top. Oh, and there's one called, it's all about drummers. Damn, I just watched it last night. I'll get the name of it, but it talks about
like
Bonham,
John Bonham.
and Keith Moon and Stuart Copeland. And, I think I was telling this before we went on recording, like, all these famous drummers that are alive today just did this, like,